Next, you have Assembly Bill 1172, which enjoys a due pass recommendation.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Chairman and members. AB 1172 would codify the governor's existing cybersecurity task force under the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, or OES. The bill creates a state director of cybersecurity to oversee the task force. Thank you very much. And as our state's operation become more digitally connected, it is more vulnerable to both foreign and domestic cyber attacks. So there is the need for this bill. And I want to just emphasize the fact that we've been working with OES, and we'll be meeting with Caltech as well, because the task force is currently active. So we want to work with all stakeholders to make sure that we cover all bases. So with that, I respectfully ask for a vote.
Terrific. Are there witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Public comment of any kind? Questions or comments from the panel? Seeing none. The bill has been properly moved and seconded. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to appropriations. Gatto?
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Wilk? Baker? Baker, no. Calderon? Calderon, aye. Chang? Chow?
Aye.
Chow, aye. Cooper? Cooper, aye. DeBobne? DeBobne, aye. Dolly? Dolly, aye. Gordon? Gordon, aye. Lowe? Lowe, aye.
All right, that bill has passed. We will hold the roll open.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. I will do that. Okay, while we wait for authors, that brings it down to one last bill, and I will present that in 1 second.
Mr. Gatto. It should be on. There it goes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to present Assembly Bill 83, which has to do with hacking. This bill is the result of me putting a bill on the web and allowing the public to come up with suggestions for it. And this is what the bill came up with our little crowdsourcing experiment. I know Mr. Draper has put forth a similar idea in recent days, but we did this back in December, and the public came up with this idea. I think it's a very good one. It would simply require businesses to use reasonably prudent standard of care when it comes to protecting personal data, including encrypting it, and also things like passwords. This bill is one that right now I think it's rather simple. If it changes during the process, you have my commitment to bring it back to wherever we need to bring it back to, if that is the application, if that's what we need to do. And I respectfully ask for a vote.
Any witnesses in support?
Excuse me. Thank you. Samantha Corbin on behalf of Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, already listed in support. Electronic Frontier Foundation is also hoping to be in support of the bill. We're looking forward to working with the author as it moves forward. Thank you.
Any witnesses in opposition?
Jeremy Merz on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce. We're in that tweener position again. We have no position on the bill, but we do thank the author and his staff for working on the bill. The amendments have moved in a good direction. We understand it's still a work in progress. We look forward to continuing to work with the office. One concern we're working through right now is the definition of geolocation information. I don't know that we have an amendment to offer yet, but something that we want to make sure we're not stifling the use of that information when it is needed and necessary, and yet still at the same time balancing the protection. So again, look forward to working with staff and the author.
Thank you, Robert Callahan with the Internet Association. We have no position on the bill, but did want to thank the author and his staff for some of the recent amendments, including removing subdivision G related to the AG's ability to just set technical standards for industry, and then also appreciate the amendments in subdivision F related to reasonable standards. We're still exploring the impact of that, and same goes for the definition of geophysical.
So it sounds like it's a good bill now.
It's a good bill. It's a much better bill. Appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll just echo Margaret Gladstein on behalf of the California Retailers Association, just echoing the comments of the previous testifiers. We do appreciate the authors and staff work on this and look forward to continuing as the bill moves forward to working with them on this issue.
Questions from the committee? With that, let's take a roll call. Well, we haven't. Second. I thought we did.
Mr. Chair.
The motion is due pass. Gatto.
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Wilk. Baker.
Aye.
Baker, aye. Calderon. Aye. Calderon, aye. Chang. Chow. Aye. Chow, aye. Cooper. Aye. Cooper, aye. DeBobney. Aye. DeBobney, aye. Dolly. Gordon. Aye. Gordon, aye. Lowe. Lowe. Aye. Lowe, aye.
That bill has passed. We will leave it on call so that people can add on. Okay, let's ask the sergeant to go get our remaining author, please. If we could have the sergeant please go get our remaining author, please. Thank you. Yeah, we can do add-ons. Although when she sits down.
No, sir. Oh, geez. How are you, Mike Cooper? And this is a post. I should have kind of a script. What's your name? Very nice to meet you. Are you with? ACLU. Great, nice to meet you. You want to sit here? I'll go there.
Not yet, I will. Okay.
All right. Ms. Weber, you have Assembly Bill 66. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. Before I begin, I want to accept the committee's recommendations that are there, and obviously there'll be others that will come. I'd like to also make clear that Assembly Members Quirk, Rodriguez, and Alejo will be addressing the committee's current concerns regarding Public Records Act, data retention, and funding, and so forth. On Saturday, April 4th, 2015, in North Charleston, South Carolina, a man named Walter Scott was pulled over in his car by Officer Michael Slager. The two men walked over to a field where Officer Slager allegedly began to question Mr. Scott. The officer called in to let his department know that shots had been fired because the man tried to take his gun, and the officer tried to resuscitate him. The officer in the media at first sought to justify the officer's actions. However, because of a gentleman that had a cell phone capable of video recording, the video proved otherwise, and the officer is now facing justice. If it wasn't for the camera footage, the officer's report that noted Mr. Scott was acting maliciously would have been the final say in this criminal investigation. Over a dozen cities in California have decided to or are considering implementing body-worn camera programs in their city or town. We have chosen in this bill to focus on certain sound policies for body-worn cameras to ensure the public's trust in law enforcement. This is because due to the lack of uniformity among body-worn camera programs across California, swift action should be taken in ensuring that departments that utilize body-worn cameras have best practices in place. This will ensure that the public knows their rights when traveling from city to city in general, and also be cognizant in protecting citizens' privacy. AB 66 make it very clear it's not a mandate body-worn camera bill. Rather, it is a best practices guideline that should a law enforcement agency decide to employ said cameras in their city or county. Suggestions that we've had from members to amend since the last committee, and we've included them. One, that officers will be able to look at the footage of their body-worn cameras after they have made their initial statement and will not be subject to Brady List violations. This language also includes language that ensure officers can locally bargain as to not violate the MMBA, which would be made mandatory. And it clarifies use of force as force by police officers that results in the individual or the individuals being brutalized. Mandatory sections of the bill. Under the new committee amendments, in incidents of use of force, extreme situations, or an incident resulting in severe bodily injury or death, peace officers are not allowed to view the footage of the body-worn camera until after they have made a formal statement. However, they are allowed to make amendments to their statements with the supervisor, and if this results in a modified report, both of the reports shall be provided to all parties to a criminal or administrative investigation. Secondary reports will not be subject to a Brady List violation. Number two, each law enforcement department will be required to make the department's policies and procedures available online on the department's website. 3, peace officers will only use the body-worn camera system issued and approved by the law enforcement agency that employs him or her for official police duties. 4, a police officer is prohibited from making copies of any body-worn camera files for his or her personal use, or use a phone camera or secondary video camera to record a body-worn camera file. 5, it provides guidelines in terms of when a police officer should not operate a body camera. For example, a body-worn camera would not be appropriate to use, 1, in a health facility or medical office, when patients may be in view of their body-worn cameras, or when a healthcare practitioner is providing care to an individual. 2, when ambulances respond to accidents and illnesses when victims are not involved in any criminal activity. And 3, situations where recording would risk the safety of a confidential informant or undercover peace officer. 6, it requires peace officers to notify a person they are being recorded and provide a person with the option to request the camera be turned off if, 1, the person is a victim of rape, incest, domestic violence, or other form of domestic and sexual harm, and 2, when an officer is at a private residence without a warrant or in a non-emergency situation. Number 7, finally, this bill does not and is not a deterrent to local bargaining for peace officers in their communities. Anything that is not prescribed in this bill is able to be added on to guidelines that fit the needs of their local law enforcement. The provisions after Section 7, as we mentioned, are to be considered by law enforcement guidelines and are not mandates. These things include when to turn the camera on and off, when the camera will be worn, where the camera will be worn on the body, how to ensure the camera is fully charged and operating properly, who should upload the data, and how to avoid violating the privacy of the public as well as others. Witness here in support. AB 66 is supported by ASME, NAACP, the California Public Defenders Association, PICO, Black Women Organized for Political Action, the Asian American Advancing Justice, among others. Here to testify today on behalf of AB 66 is Sean Wendt, Chief of Police of the Oakland Police Department, Reverend Johnson, who's the mother of Oscar Grant, Chauncey Smith with the ACLU, and Dr. Michael Hooper, who's a retired LAPD, former Bureau Chief Post, and current professor at Sonoma State University.
Thank you very much. Let's go to your first witness.
Good morning. Sean Wendt, Police Chief, Oakland, California. The Oakland Police Department implemented a body-worn camera program in 2010, rolling it out to all uniformed officers in 2013. Presently have about 560 body-worn cameras deployed. Our experience with the body-worn camera program has been extremely positive. The goals of the program were to have better record of evidence of citizen interactions with the police and to also improve public trust with the police. Our body-worn camera policy is very similar to the legislation proposed here in that it does not permit the viewing of the footage by the officer after an officer-involved shooting until the officer has provided their initial statement. This was done intentionally with the idea being that the police department believed it was very important to get the officers' recollection and their perception of what occurred prior to watching the video, because that's what we're really interested in. We can all watch the video. But also, additionally, there's a public trust aspect to this, and we believe that the public has more faith in the process if the officer does not watch the video prior. This has actually worked for us in practice. I think there was the fear going into that was that officers were going to be accused of lying if their statement was not entirely consistent with the video, but yet we've all been to training and know that human memory experts will tell you that particularly under high stress scenarios, it's likely the officer's statement's not going to exactly match the video. So we don't go into it with the expectation that they're going to be hand in hand, but we really are trying to learn what the officer perceived at the time of the incident, which we don't need for historically, long before we ever had cameras. That's what we went off of, and it was sufficient then. So it has been a good program for us, and we have not seen the problems arise that I think were feared when we entered into this policy. Our policy was the subject of a meet and confer with the union prior to its implementation.
Thank you. Next witness in support.
Ms. Grant?
Hi, my name is Wanda Johnson. I'm the mother of Oscar Grant, who was killed on January 1st, 2009. And I think it's imperative that this bill come into effect. One of the reasons would help with accountability for police officers. It would show the truth of what is actually taking place during the time of a situation that occurs with a confrontation between a citizen and a police officer. And so it's important that it be come into effect so that not only the police can validate their story, but that us citizens, as we watch and as we look and as we hear, we can actually look and see what actually transpired. Currently, because not all police carry them, we don't actually know when situations occur what actually has transpired, because it's more of civilians maybe videotaping and not police officers. One of the things we really would like for it to come into effect, but also so that it cannot be turned off whenever a policeman wants it to be turned off, but that it stays on and runs through the whole incident that's occurring. And so with the bill going into effect, it will give more accountability to police officers. It would allow more trust in the communities to believe what actually has transpired. Had there been a video camera when my son was killed and the police wearing it, we would have been able to see the whole picture of what happened. Even though we had 5 cameras there from the citizens, when we went to trial, we were told that not all of it was on trial. Not all of it could be seen. So if the police are wearing them all the time, it would eliminate that, and also it would show that the police are doing what they're supposed to do if they are doing it at fact at that time. And the last thing that I want to say is that if this bill comes into effect, it would allow for the community to trust law enforcement officers even more.
Good afternoon. My name is Chauncey Smith. I'm here with the American Civil Liberties Union of California in strong support of AB 66. We believe that AB 66 is a great measure because it would establish sound best practices for the use of body-worn cameras that would protect the privacy interests of peace officers as well as members of the public. And in addition, it would ensure fair and just evidence-gathering processes. AB 66 protects the privacy interests of peace officers by ensuring that their personal conversations with fellow peace officers are not being recorded and that the body cameras will only be turned on when they're involving an investigatory interaction with a member of the public. As public employees, their privacy expectations are a little bit lower, but we think AB 66 is very laudable for the fact that it does try to look out for the privacy interests of officers even within the context of when they're at work. AB 66 also protects the privacy interests of members of the public by ensuring that body-worn cameras are not being used in sensitive social situations or in circumstances when there's a heightened privacy expectation. For example, when a law enforcement officer is entering in a home in a non-emergency situation, that will be something that AB 66 accounts for. In addition, if there's an officer going to be doing some interactions with members of the public in a healthcare facility or in an ambulance or dealing with a person that has just been victimized by domestic violence or sexual assault, those are all important factual issues and scenarios that raise heightened privacy interests that AB 66 very well accounts for. In addition, AB 66 is a great measure because it would ensure that fair and just evidence gathering processes are taking place in law enforcement departments throughout the state. The key provision that would do that is AB 66 would provide that in serious uses of force. In Oakland, that phrase is level 1 uses of force, which involves situations in where there's the use of a gun, someone is being hospitalized, death, things of that nature. An officer would be precluded from reviewing the footage before making their initial statement and report. We believe that that provision is very important, not only to alleviate concerns about impropriety when it comes to law enforcement making their initial statements and report, but also, even aside from appearances, it would alleviate the opportunity for tailoring of statements to match the video footage. And even if an officer does have the best intentions at heart and intends to tell the truth, which we all presume, the research shows that when a person has more information after the event in question, their initial recollection is somewhat compromised, and it will be no longer their initial unbiased perception, but their perception plus other factors that they came into contact to. So with that being said, the ACLU strongly supports AB 66 because it provides strong privacy protections for peace officers, members of the public, and ensures fair and just evidence gathering processes. Thank you. And we respectfully request a yes vote.
Thank you very much. Let's go to public comment, and there's one more witness, it appears.
Gentleman from Post.
Yes.
All right. Welcome, sir.
Hi. My name is Michael Hooper, and I'm currently a criminal justice professor. I appear today, though, as a citizen interested in helping to build and restore trust in law enforcement. Well, I spent a total of 41 years as a criminal justice practitioner and educator. I recently retired. I was with the LAPD for 23 years in numerous capacities. Spent 13 years with the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, POST. And I served 5 years at Penn State University as a member of the Criminal Justice Program faculty. I currently teach criminal justice at Sonoma State University as a member of the adjunct faculty. Of course, my views should not be interpreted as representing the position of any of these entities. But I would like to share my views regarding the value of body camera use by police officers. It's easy to infer from a content analysis, if one were to do a content analysis of recent commentary and actions across the country, that there's a pronounced decline in trust of law enforcement, and due largely to concerns about use of force. My personal experience and knowledge inform that use of excessive force is relatively rare, though any incidence of such is not acceptable. However, the public's perception seems to be based largely upon what's seen in media reports, and thus its frequency could be significantly exaggerated. Thus, absent public awareness of all those encounters that are resolved without force or resolved with its proper use, perception can be skewed to the extent that excessive force would appear rampant. Any basis for distrust of the police may be best examined through in-depth monitoring and analysis of service delivery. Now, until neuroscience can progress to reliably accomplish thought identification, use of a body camera is the readily available means for monitoring police-community interactions and identifying any actions throughout the course of a contact that might contribute to problematic behaviors. Cooperation of police departments in this endeavor is commendable, as such transparency is not to date routinely available in high-stakes activities performed by other human services professionals in their respective venues. For example, within the surgeon's operating room, during courtroom proceedings, or during parole hearings. Now, with regard to the value of video recorded, the greater, and this is touching on, reiterating some points I think that have already been made, the greater the purity of the data, the greater the potential for maximizing the quality of learning outcomes. This is a plus side to collecting data in the form of statements and reports from an officer prior to his review of any video recording. Perceptions stimulating an officer's responses during an incident must be documented and studied in the context they were ingrained in memory, not in muddied form, which could result from documentation prepared after review of a video recording. So the essence of what's to be gleaned through a video, any record of actions, is judgment of whether a reasonable officer faced with the same circumstances, possessing the same knowledge, training, experience, would make a decision to use force in the same manner. So the footage obtained through a body camera would enable view of an incident from its inception through its conclusion. That total coverage. This is far superior from what's captured by a citizen onlooker coming upon a scene, filming only a portion of it, or even from a fixed dash cam within a police vehicle. These snippets are sorely deficient in their presentation of an encounter. Anyway, from a training perspective, I think the body camera video would be invaluable for training officers in all manner of tactics, and also in educating the public on officers' practices and perspectives. Officers can benefit from observing not only their own skill, tactical actions, but those of their peers as well. Officers' video histories could be reviewed to reveal any patterns of practice. Citizens could learn directly from officers in video review sessions the rationale for actions. And two, they could gain insights on how to interact with officers to attain the most mutually beneficial outcomes. Finally, I think trust is the lifeblood of the police-citizen relationship or partnership. Transparency and delivery of policing services is crucial for its ongoing vitality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to now go to public comment and support. I'm sorry.
Mel Osseguy for the Greater Sacramento Urban League and the Urban League of San Diego County. First, we want to say that we support law enforcement. We think they're an essential part of the fabric of society. We want them to be capable of doing their jobs and protecting the public. What this bill does is sets a sensible framework for how body cameras can help us all better understand what's going on, provide justice for both the officers and the public involved, and we strongly support this bill and urge your vote.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to public comment and support.
Good morning. Glenn Backus for Drug Policy Alliance in support.
Thank you.
Greetings, Edwin Perez, California, NAACP in strong support.
Rosa Akil with Pico, California in strong support.
Lima Murtaza with Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Los Angeles in strong support. Thank you.
Anybody else who wishes to be heard in support?